Over the years, I have spent a lot of time seeking out ancient and unusual female images in various books, museums, and in my travels. These are some of the books I've acquired over time. This presentation contains some highlights of what I've discovered over the years. By present day standards, some images might be considered bizarre or grotesque. Keep in mind that many of these were considered sacred in their time. So if you look beyond present day expectations of female imagery, you'll see that many of these are inherently powerful and beautiful in their own way, as they depict the many broad aspects of being female, not only as the usual beautiful young woman and mother, but also as a powerful creator, healer, protector, warrior, and even destroyer. My interest in female imagery started with a visit to the British Museum in 1990, where I sketched the 6,000-year-old Egyptian figure of a bird goddess. It fascinated me because I'd never seen anything like it before. It seemed very powerful and inspired me to learn more. Female figures are among the earliest art forms. Over 200 have been found across the very long distance from France to Siberia. They were made for thousands of years, dating from 35,000 to 20,000 BC, which is during the Paleolithic Ice Age. The figures are small, just a few inches as if they were made to be held in the hand. Most of them have a body shape with the widest point at the abdomen and the reproductive organs exaggerated. Oftentimes, other details, such as the head and limbs, are neglected or absent, so the figure is abstracted to the point of simplicity. Here are three of the most famous. These are all at least 27,000 years old, and they were found in the 20th century. On the left is the Venus of Willendorf. She's from Austria and made of limestone. And next is the Venus of Lespugu from France. This one's made of mammoth ivory. And finally, the Venus of Dolní Věstonice from the Czech Republic. And this is one of the earliest examples of something made out of a ceramic. These are Venus figures of Kotenki from Russia, and these are made of ivory. This one's called the Venus of Le Sol. She's carved in a cave entrance in France. She's about 18 inches, originally painted red. The figure holds a bison horn in one hand, which has 13 notches, which may symbolize the number of moons or the number of menstrual cycles in one year. Now, during the Mesolithic, that's the age between the Paleolithic and the Neolithic, statuary was largely absent. Then during the Neolithic, covering the period 8,000 to 3,000 BC, female figures were very common, many similar in style to those of the Paleolithic thousands of years earlier. During the Neolithic, people learned to farm and to keep domesticated animals. Although no one can speak with certainty of the social and religious place of women during this period, the multitude of female figures suggests that women's life-giving and nourishing powers were related to those of the earth. This is a mother goddess. She's made of terracotta from Turkey. She is seated on a throne flanked by two lionesses and was found in a grain bin, which might have been a means of ensuring the harvest or protecting the food supply. And this is a fish goddess made of sandstone from Serbia. She combines fish, woman, and birds of prey, all symbols of the goddess of birth, death, and regeneration. This one's called Red-Haired Goddess, Serbia 6000 BC. The first two figures on the left are from Romania, and both considered pillar-headed goddesses. And the one on the right, that's the one in the center, is thought to be a pregnant figure. The one on the far right is even more abstract, like modern minimalist art. It's of marble from Bulgaria. So I've decided to include this male figure on the left because this is a special pair called the Thinker and the Sitting Woman from about 5000 BC of terracotta. They're at the Natural History Museum of Romania in Bucharest. In Eastern Europe, they're so proud of this heritage that they include the imagery in their currency. On the left is the Romanian bill, and the right is a coin from Slovakia showing a female figure that I had made into an earring. These two are from about 4500 BC, Bulgaria, and they're made of terracotta. The one on the right she's called a masked goddess. She appears to be wearing a mask. These are bird goddesses. The one in the drawing on the left is interpreted as wearing a crown and a duck mask. There's two more variations of these types of figures from the same period. The one on the left is terracotta, and the one on the right is made from bone. The inset map on the upper left shows the location of the island of Malta, which is located south of Sicily. It has ruins of some of the oldest freestanding structures on Earth, which are the temples dating from 4000 to 2500 BC. An aerial view of a temple is shown bottom left. The curvilinear architectural forms of the temples seem to be modeled on their robust female figures, such as the one shown to the right, and she's called the Dreamer of Malta. This figure is from Greece, approximately the same period. And also from Greece are these Cycladic figures. They're marble, dating from about 2500 BC. About 1,500 of these very modern-looking figures have been found in the Greek Cyclades Islands, and there's no consensus on their significance. There is a general theme in the artworks from the Neolithic, as I mentioned earlier. It's the agricultural cycle of birth, death, and regeneration. So I was inspired to do a triptych using pastel and print media on colored paper. This first one is the pregnant mother, and she represents birth. Representing death is my death crone on the right, but the border surrounding her incorporates the image on the left, which is an owl-shaped burial urn with a vulva representing rebirth or regeneration. And such urns have been found throughout Europe and Anatolia. Completing the triptych is the image of regeneration that I imagined as a woman dreaming about the future, surrounded by symbols of life and regeneration, such as a tree of life, stylized butterflies, and a snake bracelet, as snakes are associated with regeneration. In Sumeria, Egypt, Crete, and Athens, goddesses are all shown with snakes. In Mexican Aztec culture, the snake is the sacred animal who sacrifices itself for the creation of man. The first form of sculpture in the Near East consisted of handmade clay figurines, the vast majority representing nude females. Here's an example of goddess Inanna, or Ishtar, at the Louvre in Paris, and she's from about 2000 BC. Another image of Inanna, who was the ancient Mesopotamian goddess of love, war, and fertility. She's shown on a seal from 2200 BC, equipped with weapons on her back, a horned helmet, and a lion on a leash. This image of Inanna is called Queen of the Night. What is very interesting to me is how similar it is to wood carving in a French cathedral from 1500 AD, depicting the birth of the Green Man. This image on the left is from about 1750 BC, and it's at the British Museum in London. But I like these images so much that I made a version of Birth of the Green Man. And green men are images found in Christian churches in Europe, examples of which are printed on the border surrounding this figure. The next few slides are images from ancient Egypt. The first one is the goddess Isis, and my version is on the right. Isis was a very important mother goddess whose image endured over millennia. She was originally worshipped in Egypt as long as 4,000 years ago, but also widely worshipped in the Greco-Roman world. On the left is a statue of the goddess Sekhmet, who was a warrior goddess and also goddess of medicine. She's associated with the goddesses Bastet and Hathor, so on the right is my version showing her with Bastet, the cat goddess, and she's surrounded by a border with images of Hathor, the bovine goddess. So these are more images of Bastet on the left, representing the gentler aspect of the feline associated with home, fertility, and childbirth. Hathor was a sky deity and a mother goddess, and much like Sekhmet, she also had a vengeful protector side. I wanted to include this Egyptian sculpture of a couple because these are common and I find them very interesting and even charming because they show a man and woman, often about the same size, usually with the woman holding the man in a supporting way. This one is of a king and a queen from about 2500 BC. The next several slides are of artworks from ancient Greece. These realistic snake goddesses or priestess figures date 1650 BC from the Minoan civilization, which was on the island of Crete. The dresses expose the breasts, but the skirts are long and ornate, often ruffled or layered. And this is also shown in the gold seal at the right. So these are more statues from Crete. These ceramic figures, also with raised arms, are more abstract. And the painting on the right is a heavily reconstructed fresco. These female figures are from the Mycenaean culture, which was on mainland Greece, a little later than the Minoans, but at about the same time. This culture lasted until about 1050 BC. The Mycenaeans also produced a lot of smaller figures. On the left is a diagram showing their development over time. After the fall of the Mycenaean culture, Greek actually went into a dark age until the Archaic period, which was started around 800 BC. During the Archaic, this sort of statue of a maiden called a core was typical, showing rather stiff-looking clothed young woman with a restrained smile, and it was meant to represent the ideal of transcending the hardships of the world. Later during classical times, about 500 BC, Greek art evolved to look more natural, like this Aphrodite, who the Romans called Venus. So now at the Acropolis, these are two classical buildings. Of course, that's the Parthenon on the left, and this is about 500 BC. And on the right is a building called the Erechtheion, and that building employs female statues as pillars, and they're called the Caryatids. In antiquity, the Parthenon housed a monumental 37-foot tall statue of the goddess Athena, made of ivory and gold. So this is a Roman copy dated 300 AD. The original was 12 times larger. A female sphinx is on her head. She's holding an image of winged goddess Nike, representing victory, and she's accompanied by snakes and Medusa, both on her chest and on her shield. So taking a closer look at some of Athena's imagery. First, the Medusa, who's also called a gorgon, is a guardian protectress with living snakes in place of hair. Her appearance is so hideous that anyone who looks upon her was turned to stone. In this archaic sculpture, she wears a belt of intertwined snakes, which is a fertility symbol. Here's a bronze image of Medusa from an actual Greek shield. She was also depicted often on Roman armor. And in 1898, in Vienna, Austria, Gustav Klimt painted this version of the Pallas Athena, also with the Medusa. So another symbol on the Parthenon statue of Athena is the Sphinx. This is a treacherous and merciless being with the head of a woman, the haunches of a lion, and the wings of a bird. She challenges those who encounter her to answer a riddle and kills and eats them when they fail to solve it. So also in Vienna, Austria, there's several Sphinx figures adorning the garden of the Belvedere Palace and Museum. And I like these so much, I made my own version when I came back from a visit to Vienna one time. So these are statues of Greek sirens, and these are half woman and half bird. They lure sailors to death with their song. In medieval art, sirens were symbols for the dangerous temptations embodied by women. One of the seven wonders of the ancient world, the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus in Turkey, was built about 550 BC. Artemis was the Greek goddess of chastity, hunting, wild animals, forest, childbirth, and fertility, and equivalent to the Roman goddess Diana. The original statue in the temple was made of gold, ebony, silver, and black stone, and these two versions of the statue are ancient copies. The legs and hips are covered with reliefs of animals and bees, and the top of the body has been interpreted as having many breasts, or being covered in eggs, or possibly bull testicles. Ephesus was said to be founded by the Amazons. So here's a carved relief image of the Amazons. And here's another image depicted on a painted urn. In Greek mythology, the Amazons were a group of female warriors who were known for their physical agility, strength, archery, riding skills, and the arts of combat. Their society was said to be closed to men and governed by a queen. But it wasn't all myth. There have been burial sites of female warriors found in the Eurasian steppes, suggesting that those cultures likely inspired the Amazon myth. And this is my version of an Amazon. The Roman version of Athena is called Minerva, and this is a gilt bronze bust of her found at the Roman Baths in Bath, England, dated 60 AD. The main pool of the bath complex is shown on the right. The baths were built over ancient hot springs, originally associated with the Celtic goddess Sulis, but in Roman times the site was dedicated to Minerva. This is an eroded sculpture found nearby of 3 Celtic mother goddesses who were worshipped in pre-Roman times. So besides the springs at Bath, I also visited the Chalice Spring at Glastonbury in England, which is associated with the legend of King Arthur and the Holy Grail. As a result, I created this artwork called The Sacred Spring, which shows a woman meditating in front of images from both Bath and Glastonbury, and she's surrounded by a border with a Celtic design and also images of various Sheela na g's. Now, Sheela na g's are a kind of female gargoyle. They're found on medieval churches, castles, wells, and gateposts in Ireland and the UK and much of mainland Europe. They date from about the 11th to the 16th century. The one on the left is a well-known one on a church in Kelpeck, England. The poster on the right shows the various images and their locations in Ireland and the UK. No one is sure what they represent. One idea is that they warn against the sins of lust. Another is that they offer protection against evil, as the act of women flashing their genitals has been believed to scare off demons as far back as the ancient Greeks. Kind of like mooning, I guess. Another thought is that she is a pre-Christian folk goddess representing life-giving powers and fertility. So the most common female image found in churches is, of course, that of the Virgin Mary or the Madonna. A lot of churches in Europe dedicated to Mary were built over springs and other ancient sites originally associated with the local goddesses. A good example is this church, which is called Santa Maria over Minerva, and it's located in Assisi, Italy. And this is my favorite painting of Mary. It's called Virgin of the Rocks by Leonardo da Vinci from 1483. It shows Mary with Jesus, an angel, and an infant, John the Baptist. So there are many highly venerated images of Mary, and the statue in the Basilica de la Macarena in Sevilla, Spain is one. She falls under a category of Our Lady of Sorrows and is considered a national treasure in Spain, where she is carried in procession through the streets during Lent. She is a patroness of bullfighters and the Romani of Spain. At least 100 statues and paintings of Mary are associated with healing miracles and special favors. Many of these are mysterious images called Black Madonnas. And here's some examples. Starting on the left is the Madonna of Montserrat, Spain. Next is Our Lady of Czestochowa in Poland. Then Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico. And finally, a Black Virgin in France. And this is a version that I did. I just called the Slavic Mother. So another variety of the divine Black Mother is the Indian Hindu goddess Kali. Unlike Mary, Kali is both the benign and the terrible mother. She creates and nourishes, but also kills and destroys. As God, she is neither good nor bad, but beyond the pair of opposites. Her skin is black, as all colors disappear in black, and all names and forms disappear in Kali. So Kali is considered the force that brought the universe into existence. So this is my version of her as that creator. Often associated with Kali is the Hindu goddess Durga. She's usually depicted with 8 or 10 arms, riding a tiger or lion, and slaying the buffalo demon. She's associated with protection, strength, motherhood, destruction, and wars. And here she is shown slaying the buffalo demon. So these figures are called Yakshinis or Yakshis. They're a class of female nature spirits in Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain mythologies, and they're associated with the ancient sacred groves of India. This is a photo of an apsara, many of which adorn the spectacular 12th century ruins at Angkor Wat in Cambodia. Apsaras are a class of celestial beings in Hindu and Buddhist culture. They were originally a type of female spirit of the cloud and waters, but later play the role of a nymph or fairy. They're also dancers and figure prominently in the arts of many Asian cultures. So, wrapping up the Asian imagery is 2 lovely images of the Buddhist savior goddesses, Green Tara and White Tara. These are popular in Nepal, Tibet, and Mongolia. The white and green taras are said to symbolize, between them, the unending compassion of the deity who labors both day and night to relieve suffering. So now traveling around the world to Mexico, these are both images of the Aztec goddess Coatlicue, who gave birth to the moon, stars, and the god of the sun, and also a god of war. She is represented wearing a skirt of writhing snakes and a necklace made of human hearts, hands, and skulls. In the image on the right, she also has the head of a snake. This is an image of an Aztec goddess in childbirth. And it's in the collection at the Dumbarton Oaks in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. A few interesting ceramic figures at the National Museum of Anthropology in Mexico City. And there's a great number of these at the museum there. So these are called Huastan sculptures. They're from the northern Gulf Coast of Mexico, dating from as early as 250 AD. The culture lasted until the time of the Spanish conquest in the early 16th century. The sculptures were originally embellished with bright pigments. These were located at the British Museum in London. The photo on the left here was taken at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, and my pastel of it is on the right. So African art has many amazing and interesting female images, and the one on the left is one of my favorites at the Art Institute of Chicago. It's from Nigeria and is sculpted around 1910. The diminutive portrayal of the king suggests his dependence on others, while the towering image of the king's senior wife standing behind him underscores her superior status as a guardian of her husband's interests. The smaller figures represent one of his junior wives and the trickster god. On the right is an assortment of hand-carved fertility dolls called Ashanti. They are found in many Western African countries where they are given to a woman who wants to become pregnant. She cares for the doll as if it were an actual baby while she is waiting for conception to occur. This slide shows a couple of images of Maria Lianza of Venezuela. She's riding a tapir. There's a growing worship of her, which blends indigenous spirituality with West African, Norse, and Catholic beliefs. She's a goddess of harmony and nature. Her sacred site is a mountain where she's worshipped annually in a festival in October. If you've been to Hawaii, you've likely been introduced to Pele, the goddess of volcanoes and fire, and the mythical creator of the Hawaiian Islands. On the right is my mixed media work inspired by her and Hawaiian petroglyphs. So other mythical beings are water spirits or mermaids. Rusalkas are Slavic water spirits, originally good and linked with fertility. However, in the 19th century, they somehow became associated with evil. This is a poster for the opera Rusalka, which was Dvorak's 9th and most popular opera, and the photos from the New York Times Met Opera. I don't have an image to show, but I wanted to mention that in Africa, Yoruba religions, there's a major water spirit called Yemaya, who is considered the mother of all divine spirits and of all humanity. So on the left is the mermaid of Warsaw, Poland. 1622, she's a symbol of Warsaw, and she's shown on the coat of arms holding a sword and shield. She's ready to protect the city. On the right is her sister, the Little Mermaid of Copenhagen in Denmark. This iconic bronze statue depicting a mermaid becoming a human was created by Edvard Eriksson in 1913. The image is based on the 1827 fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen. And this is my version of a water spirit. This bronze statue is in the Faroe Islands, which are also part of Denmark. It's not a mermaid, but a selkie that can shapeshift between seal and human forms by removing or putting on a seal skin. Selkies feature prominently in the mythology of Celtic and Norse cultures. There's a really cute movie called The Secret of Rowan Inish, made in 1994. It's about an Irish family that discovers it has a Selkie ancestor. So female figures have often been used in allegorical sculpture to personify abstract ideas such as liberty and justice, and this became especially popular around 1900. On the left, of course, is the Statue of Liberty. It's actually called Liberty Enlightening the World, and it was a gift to the U.S. from France, dedicated in 1886. The artist was Frederic Auguste Bartholdi. On the right is a statue of Lady Justice that she adorns a court in Hong Kong. So thinking of heroic female figures, this is one of my favorite paintings. It's called Judith. It is painted in 1540 by Dutch artist Jan Sanders van Hemesen. Judith was one of the most heroic women of the Old Testament. When her city was besieged, she gained access to the quarters of the general Holofernes. After winning his confidence, getting him drunk, she took his sword and cut his head off, thereby saving the Jewish people. Still a popular subject hundreds of years later, again, Gustav Klimt in Vienna painted two versions of Judith. The one on the left is from 1900, and the other one is from 1909. And here's an art piece of mine, influenced by Klimt, and maybe still the Black Madonnas and other works of that period, around the turn of the century. Another artist that I like from the same period is Alphonse Mucha. He was Czech, but he worked mostly in Paris. These are his Moon and Stars series from 1902, in which the stars are personified as females. The poses are considered meditative and dramatic rather than sensual. These images are examples of Art Nouveau, which was popular between 1890 and 1910. It was an international style of art, architecture, and applied art, inspired by natural forms such as the sinuous curves of plants and flowers. Women, mostly young and elegant and often merged with nature, are everywhere in Art Nouveau, from commercial poster girls to allegorical figures, from conservative role models to icons of feminism. So here's another work by Mucha from 1898, and this was a poster advertisement for a printing company. So in the past few decades, there have been more women artists and more variations on female imagery than ever before. These figures are a good example called Nanas. They were made by an artist, Nikki du Sanfal, and they were inspired by a pregnant friend of hers. The series debuted in Paris in 1965. The artist described them as a jubilant celebration of women. And this is the dinner party. It's an installation artwork at the Brooklyn Museum in New York by American feminist artist Judy Chicago. It features 39 elaborate place settings on a triangular table for 39 mythical and historically famous women. 5 years in the making, with the volunteer labor of more than 400 people, it was completed in 1979. Each place setting includes a hand-painted china plate, ceramic cutlery and chalice, and a napkin with an embroidered gold edge. Most plates depict a brightly colored, elaborately styled vulvar form. The settings rest on intricately embroidered runners. The table stands on the heritage floor, made up of more than 2,000 tiles, each inscribed with the name of one of 998 women and 1 man who have made a mark on history. Before closing, I just want to say that even though there's a lot of different information in this talk, I obviously left out a lot. The field of female imagery in art is incredibly expansive. And one example is this Dictionary of Goddesses in World Mythology, which compiles information on 9,500 female deities, spirits, nymphs, and fairies. And my very last image is a very recognizable special painting, Arrangement in Gray and Black #1 from 1871 by James McNeill Whistler. It is, of course, a picture of his mother, Anna McNeill Whistler. It's in the collection at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, and it's an iconic painting, something like the Mona Lisa. Because of that, I always thought of it as kind of a joke, but then when I saw it in person, it literally just blew me away. Maybe because the painting was unexpectedly large at 56 by 63 inches. But the bottom line is that it's just painted so delicately, and I just found it to be so beautiful. And thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the talk.